Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for tuning in to another episode of the Generational Wrestling Podcast. As always, is yours truly, the 29-year-old piece of gold, the franchise, aka the showstopper, better known as the GOW's resident tribal chief. And with me, as always, I got my tag team partner, my brother, my family. He is the flyest in the room, Mr. 1, 2, 3, pin that ass down, K Breezy, aka King Two Code. Brother, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing good, man. But as usual, man, today's a special day because we have a very lovely special guest, and I am excited, man. So let's go ahead and get this thing going.
Absolutely. And joining us today, she is a staple in women's wrestling and the wrestling industry as a whole. She is the first ever TNA knockout champion and first ever female TNA inductee into the Hall of Fame. Gail Kim. Gail, how are you?
Hi guys, thanks for having me. I'm super
Thank you for
excited.
joining us. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. How's life going with you? How's everything going over your way?
Is great. 2023 has been off to a great start with Hard to
Yes.
Kill. I don't know if you guys got a chance to catch the pay-per-view, but
Oh, yes.
it's off to a great start, and I'm excited to see what's next.
I have to say, man, I think you guys have been on a streak for the
Yeah.
past year because Impact has been putting on a lot of great pay-per-views, getting a
Mhm.
lot of praise, not just from the women, from just everybody. You guys have been definitely putting on a show that I don't think a lot of people expected from you, which I
Yeah.
think is a good thing because it's making them want to see more of you. So I don't think it's just recent. I think it's been for the past year. You guys have been knocking it out.
I wholeheartedly agree, and not just because I work for the company, and of course have always been um, a big proponent of Impact Wrestling. Sorry, I'm going to adjust this so it's good on the screen for you guys.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but they've been killing it. The roster has been killing it from
Yes.
2022. Like you said, all the pay per views, I've been talking about this in all my interviews. They've just been on such a roll. And, of course, there's a whole team behind that in terms of
Mhm.
production, creative, and the management and everything. But, the talent has really brought it. And, for the longest time, I think because we've been the underdog in terms of the
Yeah.
companies,
Mhm.
um, trying to prove maybe, because we've been through so many management regimes.
Yeah.
I think people just get stuck in the past and they want to believe that what we were in the past is what we are now. And listen, I was a part of the past. I love the past. I loved everything we went through. And of course, you go through your ups and downs. But I think some people lost some faith in us over the years, and I think we're starting to turn it around now. And I think people know, especially back, with all our collaborations, we were kind of the
Yeah.
central part of all these companies coming together and working with each other, especially during the COVID period, in terms of things that the wrestling fans didn't expect. And I love that we were on the forefront of that, and I love that we showed that wrestling wins in general. You don't have
Yes.
to pick just
That's
one
true.
company to root for. Listen, in our world, it's such a small world.
Yes.
Wrestlers come and go up and down the road, up and, you see who you
Yeah.
see on your way
Yeah,
up is who you
exactly.
see on your way down. And people got to remember that. Your favorite wrestler will go from company to company, and it's great that we all have opportunities to go to other companies and
Right.
spread the love and show what we got. And sometimes there's some wrestlers that get utilized better in some companies, and you get to see parts of these wrestlers that you've never got to see before. So I love it. I welcome it all.
Awesome.
Speaking of, that change, and that's been a knock on Impact for in the past was the regime changes, the back and
Yeah.
forths. But Impact has always found a way to remain relevant. You
Yeah.
just said something about, Impact working with other companies to prove that wrestling wins. In 2020, when the pandemic first started, we heard a lot about the Forbidden Door, right? So
Mhm.
people equate the Forbidden Door with AEW. But I think Impact doesn't get the respect and the recognition that you guys deserve because you guys are
Most definitely.
collabing with New Japan's and Ring of Honor's way before it was even popular.
Yeah.
So talk about that. You talk about being on the forefront of that. How does that make you feel to know that you wrestled for the biggest company in the world at one point,
Yeah.
and now you're here and to kind of see everybody just now really starting to catch up to what you guys been doing?
Hey, listen, if we I think a lot of the time we'll hear this from like a lot of hardcore supporters or people who have been in the industry a long time. For example, the women's revolution, they'll talk about that and
Yeah.
how the knockouts were at the forefront of that long time ago. We were doing things, TNA was utilizing the women in 2007, years before
Yes.
all this happened.
Yes.
So I think if you're just a part of that, and the fans know it, and you're a part of something good that is inspiring other companies or other people to do these things, that's just the most important thing. I mean, you don't necessarily have to get like the credit for it, but I think people know who follow wrestling and know what's going on and have their, fingers on the pulse of what's happening all the time generally. Yeah, Impact's always kind of been, in a lot of areas been charging that lead, and I'm proud of that. I'm really proud of it.
Before I want to ask you about the pay-per-view between Jordan Grace and Mickie James, but before I get to that, I just want to know, you and Awesome Kong, you guys had a rivalry, bitter war. You pretty much were I would say, the staples for the knockouts division. For it to start the way it did when you were there, to see it now, how do you feel about the division, and what are you most happy about?
Just so happy that it's literally everything we were fighting for back then is
Right.
ultimately today. It's become what we wanted to see. And yes, it's taken a long time, but to be on that journey from beginning to present and looking towards the future to what more it could be is
Right.
just a dream come true, because I know how hard the battle was to even get that first Knockouts Championship title in there, to get the women in there, to give us the chance and to please give us that ball that we can run with. And to see what it is now and how much the company believes in the women. I mean, they main evented the pay-per-view on Sunday. Or sorry, I said Sunday because that's when it normally is on Fridays, right?
Right. I think the Friday threw a lot of people off.
It's like throwing me off now. We've changed everything. But just to see that, and I mean, I was part of, I was producing the Mickie James, the first pay-per-view that she main evented with Deonna Purrazzo.
Yeah.
I remember being so excited that day because I knew, like, I always wanted to main event a pay-per-view, so it's like, wow, the girls are finally main eventing a pay-per-view. And yeah, of course you're sad you couldn't do it, but you're ecstatic that it finally comes to the day that it can happen and that you watch two girls that worked so hard and deserved it, and they killed it. And Jordan and Mickie were on another level that night. And just to be able to watch Mickie through her progression from indie talent to what she is today, battling to prove to herself and to the fans that she still got it. And Jordan, to watch her from the day that she walked in and to how much she's grown as a performer and into a star to this day. They're two different journeys, and everybody won that night. The fans won that night. Mickie literally won that night and proving to herself.
I don't think no one was ready to see her leave just yet.
And Jordan literally said she won because she got to main event a pay-per-view, wrestle a legend in Mickie James, and it had a hell of a match where fans were like, I was so emotionally invested. People are still talking about it to this day. This is everything a wrestler could dream for.
Speaking of the women, and speaking of Mickie James, it was really cool because to see her really embrace her Native American heritage and the whole ceremony beforehand. I want to talk to you about identity and representation in professional wrestling, more specifically your own personal journey. When you started, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember at that time there being any Asian women female representation on mainstream wrestling TV.
Correct.
You was at a company, they didn't understand it, they didn't embrace it. You go to Impact, TNA at the time, you become knockout champion, you spearhead that division, you become the first ever female inductee. For you, and for women that look like you and little girls that look like you and that wants to grow up to hopefully be something in life, what are your hopes for them to step in your footsteps and trailblaze in wrestling, whether it's in the ring or in the office, such as yourself?
Yeah, it's funny because we think about it's so important to have representation. And actually going into wrestling and trying to get that first TV job, I remember the thing that stood out for me when I was watching the Trishas, the Victorias, and the women of the golden era. I remember that's when I fell obsessively in love with women's wrestling. And I remember my first thought was, there's no Asian woman. Maybe I have a chance. So I looked at it as an opportunity, not necessarily a lack of, until I got there. And then I'm like, wait, you know what? Yeah, this is important representation. But it's interesting at the same time, though, that when I was in there, I really felt like I was different. Like I stuck out like a sore thumb because of that reason, or I did feel different because of that reason, which interesting enough, my success came when I didn't feel like she's the Asian girl. When me and Kong were getting pushed and given these great opportunities, we never felt like we're the minorities or like a Black girl and an Asian girl getting an opportunity. It was just Kong and Gail. They treated us as Kong and Gail, and that in turn, just treating us as human beings and as performers, made us stand out as ethnic or minority representation for that reason, that they treated us to be not different. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I'm in circles,
respecting your craft and what you do, and not just looking at what you are and just seeing that you are good and that we're going to give you this opportunity. So most definitely,
it wasn't about pushing us because we're Asian and Black, right? So
so with the new direction for Impact and what's going on, just give some of your thoughts on some of the newer women that's in the division. We know about Jordan, we know about Mickie, but I want to hear you talk about who are some of the young up and coming that you want to see and who you got your eye on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so excited for the whole division. I want to see more tag teams come into, because we got to build on that. You know, we lost Kiera Hogan at the time when Fire and Flava were really hot. I mean, they were just hitting them stride. Yeah. We missed them, but Tasha's doing great.
Yes.
So yeah, Tasha's always won. She's a great talker. She's really got that charisma, and
she's definitely got a swag about her.
Yeah, swag. I mean, every time her entrance music hits, I'm back there on the headset bopping along all the time.
Me too. Me too.
And I'm like, entrance, like all day, all night. Right? I'm really excited to see what we're going to get out of Giselle Shaw, because she is bringing it lately, and I think she's finally in a place where she feels free and comfortable, and she's got such athletic ability. She's got this character now that she's truly feeling, so I'm excited to see, because she's doing really well now. Once she steps up to that next level, I mean, her and Jordan has had several great matches this past year. I mean, I can count several that I loved, and I hold up very high bar in terms of what I like. And her and Giselle, it was just for an Impact show, but they killed each other, and it was incredible. So I'm excited to see what comes of her. And there's probably some new faces you're going to see this year. So I'm super excited for that too. We're always adding to our knockouts division. We're always looking for the best. There's so many talented females out there. So sky's the limit for this division, and Impact's great at using the women. So
if there's a possibility, you have enough people to do it, is there any thought of you possibly trying to push for an all-female pay-per-view sometime soon?
About it all day today, because everyone's like, what are you looking forward to for 2023? And that's the one thing I think all the companies talk about, and then it hasn't really happened. And I think there is a demand for it, interesting enough. And I've kind of passed along the idea of like collaborating with other companies, and maybe a Stardom, because Stardom's starting to work with New Japan, and they got the all women's division there. And there's so many possibilities. That's my next goal. So that's what I'm looking forward to. And seeing the best of the knockouts division against many other talented women out there.
Before I pass it back to my brother, I just got one question I just want to ask. Seeing Mickie James kind of not resurgence, but just seeing what she's doing, does it give you a little bit of that bug that you may not totally go with it, but it's still an itch in the back of your mind? It's like, you know what, I can do this. I can keep up with her.
Yeah, of course. Okay. Oh, I get froggy all the time, and so I'm at work and maybe something's happening and I'm explaining something, and maybe I just do one physical thing and I'm like, no,
let me pull back.
Live. And you just always say never say never. It's always got to be the right opponent. It's got to be the right storyline. It's got to be the right thing. you say never say never. I don't know if I would do what Mickie did. No, she did the whole climb from the bottom to the top.
Right.
I think I could probably squeeze out a match or two, but I don't know if I could squeeze out as many as she.
Well, no, we wouldn't want you to do nothing crazy, but just just giving that fan service of, wow, man, Gail, she still got it. She's still the best.
Absolutely. I always want to show that. It's just ingrained in us. We're performers. So yeah.
Respect.
And there's so many women out there right now. It's like, oh, I want to wrestle them. I want to wrestle them. I want to wrestle them.
Well, you still have time. We're waiting.
I know. I still have a little bit of time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. We'll wait patiently.
Gail, got a question for you. Yeah. Going back to the TNA side of Impact. Recently, we lost Don West. Yeah. Who I feel like for the longest time, he and Mike Tenay were synonymous with the identity of TNA Impact. When you heard of the passing of Don West, what ran through your mind, and do you have any funny memories or fond memories of Don?
I mean, everything. I always say this, and I'm not even exaggerating. I don't have one negative, and I worked with him for years. Okay. And we did all the live events in a full-time schedule.
Yes.
And we saw each other every week. I don't have one negative memory of Don. He was always like that voice you heard, that excitement, that positivity you heard when he was commentating. That's who he truly was backstage. Just positive, the excitement for the matches, and he'd always be so complimentary. He would say, you and Kong, you make it so easy to call a match because I'm just so, really invested in it. And he just made you feel good all the time. And it was just heartbreaking because I did get to talk to him before he passed, and he wasn't in a good place. So I guess I was prepared somewhat mentally in some way. I knew it wasn't going well, but it doesn't help the sting, I guess, once the real news gets delivered. And because he was so beloved by so many, it was a really hard one to deal with for a lot of people, I think. Yeah. I want to see him and Mike Tenay in the Hall of Fame this year. I think it's
most definitely
most fitting and deserved.
Moving on, so going back now, I want to kind of jump back to Hard to Kill. Speaking of another legend that's joining the fray, we got Bully Ray, right?
Yeah.
He and world champion Josh Alexander had a hell of a match.
Yeah.
My thing is this. How important is it for the legends to come back, such as Bully Ray, a guy who hasn't been a full-time performer in years? He sees one of the top guys in Josh Alexander. They have an amazing story, includes the wife and the whole nine, have a kick-ass match at the Full Metal Mayhem. How awesome is it for you, somebody who's a legend and a veteran as well, to see the young generation and the older generation kind of collabing together, again, like Mickie James and Jordan Grace, and to see them make magic?
Yeah. I think it's really important. Number one, I think for the fans who have been longtime fans, it brings in that nostalgic aspect. So everyone loves that. I think it's always going to be a warm feeling, of course, to see the people that you love. But, people like Bully and Mickie James, they bring performers, especially at the level that they're at now. They've had full careers, legendary careers. They've already proven themselves. They bring today's generation to another level. I think wrestling has really evolved and changed in terms of athletics and the pace and storytelling and everything like that. If you notice, those two matches I've heard the most talked about in terms of that night, even though every match was unbelievable.
Yes.
But if you think about those matches and the people that were involved, you kind of get more of the storytelling aspect to it. You get more of the emotional investment that you're attached to. And that's for a reason. It's because you're watching people that have been in the business for a long time, that know how to captivate the audience, that know how to draw you in through the stories and through the wrestling and the storytelling through the wrestling as well. Just everything combined. I think, like I said, Jordan's a great example. She's had at least 5 matches I can think of this year that I was very impressed with. But I think everyone's going to remember this Mickie James one.
Yes.
Down the road, years to come, because they're going to be emotionally remembering the story. and the feelings they had when they watched it. So I think it's a huge factor when you're working with people.
Before we get out of here,
questions?
yeah, before we get out, I just want to know, who are that next Gail and Awesome Kong? Who are those two women in Impact that you could see having that impact of that battle, that back and forth, that storytelling? Like, who are those two that you could see right now? If they're not already, who are they?
Oh, well, Jordan's actually a good example, because I know I've heard her name a lot, but she's worked really hard, so I think she deserves to have her name mentioned.
Right.
There's certain people in this industry that when they wrestle they can have a 5-star match with anybody.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that you look for in a person. Who are they wrestling? Right. Wow, they can have a match with anybody, whether it's a character type person, and we didn't know. Jordan has faced all these people of this generation thus far. And then I was even interested to see how Mickie and her and that chemistry was going to be, because it is 2 different generations, 2 different ways of wrestling. And I've wrestled, actually I haven't wrestled Jordan. Maybe that'll happen one day. But
let's book it.
Yeah, I was interested to see how that was going to clash together. And it made beautiful, beautiful magic. So I'm very happy. Yeah. It's a very, I don't know, it's hard to say with the magical stuff. It's hard to predict. I didn't know it was going to happen with Kong. I didn't know it was going to happen with Taryn. These things you just don't know. And then all of a sudden, it's this magical chemistry. And listen, that was the first time I saw her wrestle Mickie. So maybe they'll have another great one down the road. Who knows?
Well, since she did beat her, I most definitely can see Jordan wanting to get that rematch. I don't see her walking away like, okay, I respect you, you won, but we're gonna have to go back at it again. So I hope they kind of give that.
There's just so many possibilities in terms of who that next, and you never know who that magic pairing is too, right? Like I'm just saying, with Kong and I, it wasn't even about size difference. I don't think, when they just put us together. I think Jeff Jarrett, I think they threw us in a match to get ready for the women's division, and Jeff Jarrett saw the potential in us, and he was like, oh, I see something in Gail and Kong. And then it was a natural David and Goliath type setup. So sometimes just stuff happens and people see it within each other, right? So you never know.
Gail,
we thank you so much, and we appreciate you for taking the time out with us today.
Thank you.
Hold on, before we get off too cold, hold on, let me do my.
No, I was just giving my side. I'm good, but I was giving my side, man. You go ahead. You got the last words.
No. We got a last minute promo. So we got Impact Wrestling headed live to Orlando, Florida, January 20th through the 21st. Make sure to tune in.
Yeah.
And also, Gail, before we get out of here, how can people find you on social media? Drop the handles, any websites?
Yeah. Just Twitter and Instagram, Gail Kim, it's me. Nothing else. Everything else is fake if you see it. So just like you said, this Friday and Saturday, we're in Orlando. You can get tickets at impactwrestling.com. And it's going to be the fallout from Hard to Kill. So you never know who you're going to see and what you're going to see. Excited.
I can't wait. I can't wait. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for tuning in to another episode of Generation Wrestling Podcast. I'm the 29-year-old piece of gold. He's Too Cold, and she is Gail Kim. Once again, Gail, thank you so much for taking the time.
So much, guys. It was so fun.
Not a problem. Thank you.
And until next time, we'll see you guys later.